Hello. The financial calculator is a great tool for basic financial analysis and investment analysis. You might say it raises the proverbial back of the envelope computations that business people talk about to a level of sophistication that could never have been achieved before. And with the arrival of the app for the calculator app for your smartphone or for your tablet, it's even more effective. I'm a user of Excel. I've put thousands and thousands of hours into building financial models in Excel. But when I want to get the lay of the land of a new financial problem or a new investment problem, the calculator is where I go for the first few minutes of analysis, and it usually gets me a long ways. So let's take a look at our HP 10B2 calculator and look at some of the highlights, some of the, I think, most useful aspects of just making it work for you. So let's start by just entering a number. I'm going to enter 1, 2, 3, 4 decimal 5, 6, 7, 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4 decimal 5, 6. Whoops, I made a mistake. I got the last two digits wrong, backwards. So what do? Well, one thing I can do is go down to the clear key, which is the C key on the lower, the first column, second from the bottom, and I'll just hit that, and I'll start over. So 1, 2, 3, 4 decimal 5, 6. Whoops, I made a mistake again. How could I do that? So maybe there's a simpler way to correct that. Look on the third row, the key far to the far right, and notice that's a back arrow. So I'll just hit that a couple of times, and then I can put in the digits the way I want it. So that's a handier way to fix something in many instances. Okay, so now I'm going to register that number in a working register where I can use it. And to do that, I'll press the input key. Notice it's the second key down on the left. So I'll press input, and that puts this number into a working register where I can use it. Okay, suppose I want to put in a negative number. How do I do that? Well, notice the fourth key down is plus/minus, so I'll just tap that, and it's a toggle that reverses the sign on the loan in the register. So if I tap it again, it brings it back to a positive number. So back and forth I can go with that toggle, so I can always get change the sign of a number as I need. Okay, notice that I put in 1, 2, 3, 4, period 5, 6, 7, 8, but now my calculator has rounded that to 0.57. Suppose that's where we normally, with financial calculations, we normally like 2 decimals, but suppose we need more to be able to see the precision, as in, for example, when we're looking at interest rates, precision can be pretty important. Okay, how can I change it? Well, that brings up another important aspect of this kind of calculator, and that's the shift keys. Notice there's a blue key, and if I press that blue key, it highlights the blue functions on the calculator. Or if I press the other color, which I'll call orange since I'm a gator, it highlights all of the orange functions. And one of the functions down at the very bottom in the row, fourth one over, is display. So I'm going to press, I've pressed the shift key, now I'm going to press display, and I'm going to press 4. And notice what happens to the display. I've changed the decimal from 2 decimals to 4. Now normally we want 2, so I'm going to go back. So how do I do that? I'll do the same thing. I'll press the shift key, I'll press display, and I'll press 2. And I'm back to the normal 2 decimal display that we use in financial calculations so much. Okay, the display window, notice there's several things in it. In addition to that number, if you look up in the upper right-hand corner, you see some words or some symbols. Up in the far corner, mine says end. What's that? Well, in almost all business computations and financial computations, cash flows either come at the start of the period or the end of the period. And the calculator needs to know which one is happening in order to give you accurate results. So for example, every loan that I've ever seen has cash flows at the end of the period. You write a check after the fact to pay the monthly payment on the loan, for example. On the other hand, If you are dealing with rents, they almost come at the beginning of the period, or always come at the beginning of the period. So you have to be able to tell the calculator which you're dealing with, rents or loans or other things. And normally when we do investment analysis, the cash flows are assumed to come at the end of the period. So that means that most, by and large, of our analysis in real estate is at the end of period. Okay, so how do we control that? Well, notice in the second row, the orange function on the far right-hand side is beg/end. Notice that end is highlighted right now and matches the word up in the upper right corner of the window. Okay, can we change that? Yes, we can. Let's press the Shift key and let's press that key, beg/end, and notice that up in the window, the word in the corner is now begin. So it's telling us that the calculator now is assuming that any cash flows occur at the start of a period. We don't want that. So let's change it back to end of period. By the way, notice that the key also is highlighting beg for begin. Okay, let's change it. So Shift key, press that key again, and now we're back to end mode. Now, so what's that beside us? What's that beside the end? That P/YR equals, in our case, 12. That's telling the calculator another fundamentally important thing about the cash flows. That is how many periods there are per year. You can't, since the mathematics involved in cash flow relationships are compounding, they're geometric, to use a math term, we can't easily switch from monthly to annually. We have to tell the calculator in advance which it's going to be. So how do we do that? Well, notice that if we look on the top row of keys, the fourth one over under payment, we see 12 P/YR. The 12 is a number telling you how many periods the calculator thinks you're dealing with now. We can change that. And so I'm going to change that, for example, to 1 period, which is what we normally use for investment analysis. Okay, 1, Shift, and periods per year. So notice that both the wording up in the window changed to periods per year equals 1, and the number on that key changed to 1 period per year. So we've accomplished that. Now I want to look at a loan in a second as an example. So let's switch it back to 12 periods per year. So I'll type in 12, Shift key, and periods per year. So now we've got what we need. The calculator set is assuming we have 12 periods per year, and it's assuming that the cash flows fall at the end of the year. All right, let's set up a loan. So I'm going to create a loan that is 30 years and has a 12% interest rate. It's a $100,000 loan, and then I'm going to find the payment. Okay, so how do I do that? First thing I will put in is I'll just start on the left and work across. The first thing I'll enter is the number of periods. And the way I'm going to do that is I'll type 30 years, and then I'll use the Shift key. Notice that the number of periods, the orange shift on it is times periods per year. So if I press Shift and times period per year, notice that what it's done it has multiplied that 30 by 12, and I get 360, which is the number of months that I want. Now I actually could have just entered that straight. I could have put in 360 and simply tapped N, and I would have gotten the same result. Okay, the next thing I'm entering is the interest rate of 12%. So I'll type 12 interest per year, and then I'll type in the amount of the loan, 100,000 times, and press present value. Now the calculator has all the information it needs. This is a fully amortizing loan, so there's no lump sum at the end, so future value should be 0. So I can now solve for the payment, which is $1,028.61. Okay. Notice something that's extremely helpful with the app type calculator. It shows what's in those financial registers. So notice just above the N we see 360, above the I/YR we see 12%, Above the present value, so we see 100,000, the amount of the loan, and we also see the amount that where I solved for the payment. Okay, so let's suppose now we've got we have the information about this loan in those financial registers, and we also have the payment on the window. What if I want to get rid of that, erase that from the window? I can press the C key and it goes away. Notice it did not go away, though, in the financial registers. When I pressed that C or clear key, the financial registers were completely undisturbed. And also there are lots of other registers in there that were completely undisturbed when I pressed the C. So we need to have a way to get rid of all of the information in a calculator so that we can start with fresh problems. Well, how do we do that? Notice that the shift function on that C key says See All, and that's clear all. So if I want to get rid of all the information in all the registers of the calculator, which is what I want to do every time I start a new problem, because then I don't have rogue information that will mess up my results. So every time I start a fresh problem, I freshen the calculator by pressing Shift and Clear All. So now notice in those financial registers up at the top, they're all zero. I cleared them all. Okay, let's put back in that same loan and do a couple of more things with it. So first, I'll type in the information again. So the term of the loan is 30 shift times payment per year. The interest rate is 12 interest per year, and the amount of the loan is 100,000. So present value of 100,000, and I'll solve for the payment. Okay, good enough. So let's 12% is pretty high for nowadays. Let's change this to a 4% loan and see what happens to the payment. And to do that, we don't have to start over. We can simply change the important parameter, which is the interest rate in this case. So I'll type in 4 and interest. Notice it changed the register in the for interest, and I'll resolve for the payment. And there it is, $477.42, a lot lower than with the 12% interest, of course. Okay, one final thing we might want to do is to find the how this loan behaves over time. We might want to know the balance at some point in the future. We almost always do, because almost all these loans are paid off early at some time. We also might want to find the interest that's been paid over a year or the amount of the balance reduction. So there's a very handy system on this calculator to give us that information very quickly. It's called the amortization function. So how does that work? Well, we tell the amortization function what month we want to start with, the first month to be amortized, and we tell it the last month of amortization, and then we tell it to go do the work. And here's how we do that. We'll type in, let's do the first year. So I'll type in the first month is 1. I'll type 1 in input. And then I'll tell it the last month I want to process through, which is the 12th month, the end of the year. So 12, shift, amort. So it answers back, okay, we're going to look at the first 12 months, 1 through 12. So now if I start hitting equals, there is the amount of principal reduction during those 12 months. If I hit equal again, there's the amount of interest paid during that time. If I hit equal again, there's the balance at the end of that loan. So what about the second year? Well, same procedure. I'll tell it the starting month and the ending month of the amortization period I'm interested in. So the first month of year 2 is month 13. Okay, I'll put in 13 input. And the last month of year 2 is 24, so I'll put in 24, shift, amort. So now it's going to look at months 13 through 24. If I start pressing the equal sign, there's the amount of the principal reduction. It's a little more than it was the first year. If I hit equal again, there's the amount of interest paid. It's a little less than on the first year. And if I hit it again, I have a balance of $96,406.06 at the end of 2 years. So those are some of the functions that I think are most efficient to be used on this calculator. And when we're dealing with things of this nature, this sort of magnitude, the calculator is really the dominant tool to turn to. So good luck with yours.